Hare Krishna. Very, very warm welcome to everybody for this morning's Japayagna. श्री श्री राधा माधव अष्ट सखी की जय। पंचतत्व भगवान की जय। प्रहलाद नृसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। बिहारी जय। गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यमुनतीरावनचारि। यमुनतीरावनचारि। हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जयो गंधर्विक गिरिधारी गंधर्विक गिरिधारी गौर हरि। जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो अनंत लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो अनंत। मिठा गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल। मिठा गौर हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Canto 2, Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart. We are in the 29th shloka. We'll read the verse. Granena gandham rasanena vairasam rupam cha drishya swasanam tachaiva shotrena choktya nabho gunatvam pranena chakutim upayiti yogi. Word meaning, translation, and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The devotee thus surpasses the subtle objects of different senses, like the aroma by smelling, the palate by tasting, vision by seeing forms, touch by contacting, the vibrations of the ear by ethereal identification in the sense organs by material activities. It's a small purport. We'll read it. Beyond the sky, there are subtle coverings resembling the elementary coverings of the universes. The gross coverings are a development of partial ingredients of the subtle causes. So, the yogi or a devotee, along with liquidation of the gross elements, relinquishes the subtle causes like aroma by smelling. The pure spiritual spark, the living entity, thus becomes completely cleansed of all that material contamination to become eligible for the entrance into the kingdom of God. Before we move on to the class, let me tell our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Udapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्य नामिने स्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्य देशतार we again read the verse घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं च दृश्या स्वसनात् त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोक्त्या नाभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकुतिम् उपाईति योगी. Before I even move on to the class, these are all very difficult verses, technical verses. So I very specially seek the blessings of our leaders, Tarapati Prabhu and Parabhakti Mataji and all other Vaishnavas assembled here, so that whatever we try and discuss for the next 20 odd minutes is in the lives of the Parampara and most importantly pleases all the Vaishnavas, Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So, as I said, in a very technical section, we are in Canto 2, and we saw, thanks to His Grace Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, who's given the entire canto in a glance, we saw what Sukadev Goswami is suggesting, that Bhakti Yoga is the superiority of Bhakti Yoga, or it is the ultimate duty. However, some sages in the assembly may have different opinions. They have Gnana, Karma, demigod, Devata worship, Yoga as their ultimate duty. Of course, later he clarifies that the supremacy of not just Bhakti over Ashtanga Yoga also. Right? So we heard many verses, especially this particular section. What should be the Dharanashraya? What should be the focus? What should be the meditation of that two different kind of yogis? The one who is attached to yogi, who has to focus on the Virata Rupa, and the other who is the unattached yogi, who has, his Dharanashraya or his focus would be the Paramatma. So there are these two paths merging into the Lord. Okay, that is, one uses a Sat Chakra Yoga and the other is a Krama Mukti Yogi. That is, he enjoys but relinquishes also, right? That's what the Prabhupada says in the purport also. So how then they, that is how they go back to Brahman. Now, yesterday, that is verse number 28, we heard from His Grace Varahakripamaydas. There are three kind of transcendentalists. He said there are, and how nicely he explained the three different planetary, the seven coverings, the planetary systems, and he explained how the Andantara, that entire picture, and how yogi tries to cross over, of course, difficult layers to reach the spiritual kingdom, right? So, in a way, the previous verse and this verse is kind of linked. We'll see it as it goes. So, as I said, we all know this is a Krama Mukta Yogi we are discussing about, and Ashtanga Yogi. Now, from the continuation, we know that a living entity, that is, who is a Krama Mukta Yogi, one thing is very clear. If you have any still desire left, we may have to take birth again, just to complete the desire. So what happens, we may have a small desire. I wanted a, independent 1 BHK, 2 BHK house. Just for the desire, you will have to take birth again. Now, problem is, just to complete the desire, you get another birth. And in that, by trying to complete your last wish, last desire, so many other desire gets cropped up, right? And you end up satisfying, while trying to satisfy the previous desire, so many other desire comes in, and then you try to end up all the to satisfy all other desires. And this keeps on continuing. That is how we get caught in the cycle of birth and death. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. This is what is happening. Now, because this is a yogi, what happens? Lord himself engages him to enjoy, higher places, Swarga, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka, like that higher planet. Now, the difference between the Karmi and the yogi here is different. Here, the yogi can, he can stay as long as he wants, right? But what happens to a Karmi? Till his currency is there, what we call it as punya currency. After that, he comes back, right? After doing all that, he can go up to even Satyaloka, that is your Brahma Loka. And by then he's almost, because he relinquishes his material desires, are also becomes almost done, right? He has no sufferings. He's almost in the pure state of consciousness. He can stay there actually until the Brahma stage and then depart along with Brahmaji. Okay, he can depart earlier also, but he has to pierce through all the material coverings to reach the spiritual planet. So these material coverings are not small layers, right? The Panchabhuta and the other subtle coverings. I read somewhere that each one is 5 billion yojanas, right? And that is the thickness of the coverings. Imagine each one of them is 10 times more than that of that of water, that of earth, that of the water, that of the fire, air, and ether. Each one bigger in width and thickness. So imagine the living entity has to break through all the shell and cross. Okay. Now let's try to understand this with an example. I'm sure many of you have gone into some kind of a factory or to inspect something. I mean, at least in a school days, college days. As you enter in, they generally give you first thing they give you is a small plastic cover to put on your shoes. Then they give a cap. Then they give a overcoat kind of a thing. Sometimes they give you gloves. And as you go, there's a windscreen. They remove all your metal objects. Very, very strict, right? And you do the entire inspection. While coming out, what happens? They take back your IDs, the gloves, the shoes, the extra shirt, right? So everything has to be given back. So similarly, while we come into this material world, we come with a lot of identities, right? But we may have to relinquish all these identities if you want to go back home, back to God. Just like how we entered an industry while coming in and we gave everything out. Similarly, the last thing which we had taken is this earthly body. And we have to return. When we have to go back home, we have to give up everything, right? That is why we have to first cross over earthly. Okay. Then he enjoys all the sense objects over the earthly layer. What does the earthly layer give? Their sense of it's a smell. That's why it starts with Granena Gandham. That is starting from Gandham. That is the smell, right? Then next he goes Rasanena Vai Rasam. That is, he gets the water, the rasa. Then that way he gets drishya, and then the touch, tvacha, the swasanam, tvachaiva. And then keeps on going ahead like this. Finally enters into, what is it? Nabo Gunatvam, right? That is, even in the previous verse, I said it was linked, right? The last line of the 28th verse also, it says, Vyayatma Kham Brihadatma Lingam. So basically, there is a sound. What is a Prabhupada gives this ethereal Atmalingam, the real form of the self. It is basically the sound incarnation. That is the Vedas. He worships the Vedas, which is Vedas are as good as Supreme Lord, right? And that way he crosses. I know it is getting very technical. But however, I'm sure all of you understands, Prabhuji and Mataji, that one thing is that we cannot carry back anything. We have to leave everything. We have to relinquish. Okay. Though we may have, acquired a lot of things. I know Prabhujis and Matajis must be thinking, I put in so much of hard work. How can I give up all these positions? Sorry, we have to leave back everything, right? I recollect a very nice incident. This is Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak went into a house, generally a wealthy person, right? What do wealthy persons do? Generally, what is their best they have achieved? They try to say, this is what I've acquired, right? So he was showing all the different currencies, gold, many other, bags of such things he had kept. And he used to shown how big the house he's built. Obviously, he wants to say he did it, right? He kept on showing all that. And then, Guru Nanak realized, I mean, the sages are not really interested in all this. He realized, how do I tell this person? So he just wanted to teach him in a different way. He took a small needle from him and said, "Can you keep this for me? I will collect it later." So this person said, "Well, there's so much space, I can easily hoard it." But then he asked, "When will you come and collect this?" He said, "This I will come in the next life and collect it." He says, this person was a little wonderstruck. He said, I mean, one thing is, I don't know who you're going to be in next life. I don't know what I would be. I mean, how can I return that? I may not, when I live up, he kind of meant that I may not be there, and I don't know how I should take care of this. At that time, Guru Nanak said, what is it? You cannot even keep a small needle with you to the next life. Can you not bring the small needle to the next life? That is when this entire thing struck this man. It was a very hard truth for this man. See, most of the time we think we acquire many material things, right? Actually, they stick to the heart. Okay, I would like to say this, Prabhuji and Mataji. They might be sitting in your house. Okay, they could be somewhere in the house, they could be somewhere in our body, but they engrave into our hearts, right? And they get attached to our hearts. Though invisible, the moment they are invisible or whatever, it could be slightly invisible in a way, but they are definitely in our hearts. We run behind these objects, right? Just sometimes keep this spectacle somewhere, and the next 1 hour I will be in the spectacle consciousness. Where I kept it, I don't know. I'll be constant, not Krishna consciousness, spectacle consciousness. It's a small object, it can create such a mental impression and attachment, right? So this is the situation. I recollect a wonderful pastime. I heard this, it was in Ramayana, I think just before entering Dandakarena. I think Mathurapati Prabhu only is once told us. Sita Mai tells this to Lord Ram. She says, "Look, you are entering with this huge bow and arrow. I know it's a part of you, but it could be misconstrued. It could be misunderstood as though you're an enemy. You're appearing like a Kshatriya, right?" So what she wants, Lord Ram, she says, there could be three anarthas which could come out of this. Please note, Prabhuji and Mataji, the false speech, sensual pleasure, and last one is very important, cruelty without any enmity, right? Why she is reminding these three? Because you are carrying a bow and you may fall prey to any of these three anarthas, she says. Okay? Though she knows that, I mean, she knows he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she knows he's come into the forest to kill the demons, everything, but she's kind of, beware of these three anarthas is what. And I'll tell you, Sita Devi quotes a story from the Puranas, right? She talks about a sage who was in the Brahman platform. You know the shloka, right? Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Na shochiti na kankshati. Samasarveshu bhuteshu madabhakte labate param. That is, he is in that consciousness. So much so that, his consciousness is spreading in the forest. There is no enmity. The entire forest, there is no enmity, right? You understand, he's in almost in the translation says that he's fully joyful, he never laments or desires for anything, right? He's equally disposed towards living entity, all other living entities. He's a state of pure devotional service unto me. That's what is the translation for Brahma Bhutma, right? So when somebody is in that kind of tapas, right, one person is very, very unhappy. You all know who the person is? Any guesses? Whenever some Gora tapas happens, one Devata gets very perturbed.
Indra.
Indra, right answer, Mataji. So Indra starts getting very worried. Guess is right. So he wants to break the tapas. So obviously his weapons are, he tries to send some apsaras. Nothing happens. Sage doesn't seem to be bothered. Some wine, nothing seemed to trouble him. That is when finally nothing deterred. That's when finally Indra says, "Look, I need to do something myself." He comes down as a form of a king. he takes the vesha of a king. He comes there and he keeps his sword in this hermitage. He requests saying, "Can you keep this sword?" So Sage is very reluctant. He says, "Boss, we are all. I'm Sage. I've got nothing to do with this. I can't." But then this king, that is Indra, makes a very very fervent request, saying that, "Look, I'm on a mission. I will come. This is my pride." He attaches a lot of importance to it and makes it like a seva. So very reluctantly, what the sage does, sage says, "Okay, uh, I shall. You do one thing, keep it in the ashram." Right? Upon insisting, he kind of agrees. So I shall collect it later on my return. So many days pass, nothing happens. Now, sage is doing his own meditation, tapasya, but suddenly it feels that "Arey, somebody's kept me an object. Must at least go and see whether it is there. Somebody's taken it off." So he goes to check and comes back, says it is there. And then he continues the tapas. After a few days, he says, "A lot of rains, wind. Has the sword rusted? I better check it because it's my responsibility." So he goes and he checks that it's not rusted. So he pulls it out. Wow, shining, beautiful sword. Huh? And then he keeps it as it's not rusted. Again, the tapas goes on. Again, a few days later, he says, "Let me see whether it is sharp enough, because he's given it to me. It's not been used. Yeah, am I supposed to sharpen it?" Something like that. He meditates, takes it, and then he cuts a small plant. And then he says, "Wow, one slash, and that plant is cut." Then he wants to try this, whether this works with a tree also, little thicker tree. That way, one day he starts cutting all the trees. And then finally he finds a snake and says he wants to, cut it. Now look at this, Prabhujis and Matajis. He was a person who didn't even want to hurt an ant. Now look at what is he doing. He wants to, he suddenly realizes it's a harmful creature. And this way he started to kill the animal. Now, that is why Sita Devi is now trying to say, remind Lord, though completely aware that she is a supreme Lord. Okay, what is it important here? So, what is the wisdom out of all this we can gather, right? From this entire story of a Purana, or why these three anarthas was reminded by Sita Devi. Even if an object is just with us for a few minutes, or even if the object doesn't concern to us at all, we develop attachment to it, towards it, in the pretext of checking, whether safeguarding it, something like that. And this attachment is so strong for an object. Imagine the impact of the attachment for a living being. It's double sided. When you say double sided, you put a clip on a paper, when you pull it, it comes out smooth. Now, I'm talking of the simple clip which we use for the clothesline. You take two clips and put it and try to take, no, because both the clips are attached. So that is why I said it's double sided. It just gets connected, right? I would like to share this wonderful pastime of Srila Prabhupada also. Many devotees, those days were always wanting to give something to Srila Prabhupada. Very, very they loved him so much as an acharya. And one such devotee, was saving all his money, because that is the first time there was this quartz watch released. The first time the liquid crystal, right? I mean, I'm sure many of us, we have also seen those old looking watch. He was so happy because it had released only some 100 editions or 1,000, whatever. He took that, he went and gave it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada loved it, because you had to press the small button to see the time. And Prabhupada used to now and then press it and see what the time is. And this devotee was so happy. He said, "Wow, Prabhupada is going to keep it all the time with himself." And true and behold, after one few days, he went and saw Prabhupada was not wearing it. He had found that the watch was not in Prabhupada. Why? Because Prabhupada had gifted it to another devotee. Because Prabhupada never kept any gift for himself. He would always give it to others. He would wear it because, I would use it like a shawl or something, he'll wear it. The moment he wears a shawl, he would give off an old shawl to someone. I mean, this was his style. That was the way his way of showing love and affection. So, the point we are trying to make is, while we practice bhakti, we must practice some detachment also. I must practice some simple life. We should, somewhere, otherwise it starts becoming a burden on us. I mean, it's very, very difficult. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult. Okay. I would like to end 36, another 4 minutes, with something I heard in a part of the Bhakti Shastri. I'm not sure whether it's in ours or somebody else shared it with me. There was a mention of, we all have this, this famous NOI, Netter of Instruction, Atyahara Prajalpa, right? Atyahara, a big blockage in our spiritual life. Okay. In a way, we can do this as an activity. I would want each one of you to try, and it's a very interesting activity. Everybody will come back and say great results, right? If you want to check whether whatever we have is really necessary, this activity is recommended. You choose your cupboard, okay? Try to declutter it, right? You can create 4 bifurcations. I mean, put bare boxes or gunny bags or whatever. One you call it trash, the other one you call it treasure, right? Those things which fall under either it's beautiful, it's useful, it's emotional category, not aspirational, that kind, right? The third box is the transfer, that you don't need it, but maybe it's useful for others. And last, maybe it doesn't fall in any of these 3 category, temporarily undecided. You can put aside in this gunny bag and keep it out of sight, right? In case you don't open this bag for a month or 2, which means that you did not miss anything. So put them under the transfer category later on. Okay. So this 4 T's you do. When we do this activity, right? And once we understand, typically that all our houses on the whatever sajja or whatever you call it, all those box things which we have kept are never going to be needed by us. This we will start actually thinking whenever new thing comes to us, whether we need it. And we'll come to know it is so hard to give it away. Then we'll start realizing if it is not necessary, I might not as well acquire it, right? So whatever the Sanskrit for santushta, we get into that kind of category slowly and steadily. So it is very, very important to be detached, so that we feel much lighter. Of course, thankfully, we don't have to cross through all the 7 coverings, so thick coverings. Prabhupada has given us a direct route, a direct flight, direct button to the lift, whatever you want to call the analogy, use the analogy, right? But still, this is a wonderful way of not getting attached to too many things will help us, right? So we should not hanker for more than what we need just to maintain our things. I'm really sorry if I have spoken beyond my realizations. I mean, somewhere I felt this is so technical that we have to try and use, because 2, 3 places there is this I mentioned that he relinquishes and subtle causes like aroma and smell. That way, the pure spiritual score, the living entity, that becomes completely cleansed of all the material contamination. We may not be in that, at least I'm talking of myself, in the pure cleansing of material, but this will help us to go back home. I recollect my father at the age of 60 or 62 gave the checkbook and passbook and said, I don't need this anymore, you can take care. I'm just wondering whether I can do that ever, right? So thank you so much for this opportunity to purify myself. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Patit Pavan Gurudev ki jai. I would humbly request all the leaders to chip in, seniors to chip in. If they have any other points I missed, I couldn't pick anything else from this small purport. Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.